So, what do I have for you guys today? One of my favorite things to can and have on the shelf is taco meat. Yes, you can absolutely can taco meat. This makes for fast food. Fast food that is yours. It tastes like yours. It's not from a restaurant, but it's equally as fast, if not faster. It only takes a few minutes to put this in a pot or a skillet. Let that extra liquid that's in here cook off until it's to your desired level. Like, for example, Kyle really likes it a little drier. I like it a little saucier. However you like it. You use your recipe. You do your favorite tacos and you put it in a jar and you put it on the shelf. And when you have one of those evenings that's just busy or you're tired or you just like, I don't want to cook, or oops, I forgot to take the meat out of the freezer, you have a go-to that's so easy, so cool to have, and it's not hard to do. You just do your taco recipe, put it in a jar, put it in the pressure canner. Sometime later, you're done. Boom, you've got taco meat on the shelf. This here is about a pound of taco meat. It doesn't look like it, but it is. Now, Kyle and I, we don't eat a full pound in one sitting. This is actually good for a couple of meals for Kyle and I. So let's get to it. Let me show you how to do this, and you're going to thank me because I'm going to tell you what, this makes life so easy. All right.
So the first step is to, of course, get your ground beef cooked up. I am using 4 pounds because I want to can several jars of this. You just do your favorite recipe. Whatever it is you do for tacos, that's what you're going to want to do for your meat. Like I might have said before, I think I did anyway, the consistency of the meat is similar to what you get at, say, Taco Bell, I guess, for lack of a better description. It's, you know, it's not going to be the consistency that you get when you do it fresh, but it is a decent consistency. Now, what I do for tacos is really pretty simple. I just fry up my meat. I normally do just 1 pound at a time. It's just Kyle and I, the hubby and I, and that's it. So we don't need, you know, a whole lot. In fact, 1 pound will feed us a couple of times. So this will definitely give us quite a few meals on the shelf ready to go. Now, you know, when I did this the first time, I only did just a pound of hamburger to, you know, which you could do ground turkey or whatever you do for your tacos. But I only did 1 pound just to make sure that this was something that we would enjoy. And believe it or not, it is one of my favorite things to have on the shelf ready to go, because talk about a very, very quick meal. I mean, easy. It's way better than even fast food, honestly. It takes no time to open a jar, and all you have to do is cook off the excess fluid, and you're good to go. Now, if you guys have been following me for a while, you know that I am all about seasoning. But because I use a taco seasoning mix that is pretty salty, I do not add salt to my ground beef for tacos. So, of course, the first thing you're going to do when you're doing tacos is, you know, brown your meat or your veggies. I don't know that I would personally can fish. for like a fish taco, but I suppose that's something that you guys could look up and decide for yourselves if that's something that you would want to do. The thing you want to keep in mind with doing a recipe like this, a canning recipe like this, is that it's going to be pressure cooked. So depending on your ingredients, they may just basically disintegrate while being pressure cooked. And that's why the consistency of the ground beef is usually just, it's different. It's not terrible, it's just different. But it's still very good. And it actually gives you that fast food texture that you might even be craving from time to time. If you don't like that texture, then I highly recommend you do not can the taco meat like this. I would just say freeze it. And then, it really wouldn't take any extra time to, maybe a few minutes extra just to thaw it out, but to cook off any excess liquid wouldn't take long. Another thing to note is when canning meat, you want to be very careful how much like grease or fat is left once you are done cooking your meat, or if you're going to can meat raw for any reason. Like eventually I'm going to do some stew for the shelf as well, and I'll bring y'all along for that too. But if you use a very lean stew meat, then I don't think you'd really need to cook it, as far as that's concerned. I don't care for the texture of the stew meat, once it's been canned, if it's already been cooked. So I intend the next time I can some of that to not cook the meat first. And that's because I have very lean stew meat in the deep freezer, and it's not gonna, leave a whole lot of fat. The fat, it can turn rancid really quickly and ruin your food. So you want to make sure you are thoroughly draining your meat and maybe even rinsing it depending on the level of fat. Now this is from our side of beef that we bought this year, and while it's very tasty, it's very good. However, the ratio of fat to meat is, kind of fairly high. I'm going to say it's probably about 25%. So I may end up going ahead and rinsing this batch just to get that excess grease off. I don't want very much left on it, if at all, any at all. Alright, so once I get this all cooked up, I will bring you guys back and show you my next step. I almost forgot to tell you guys, I am not putting onions in this batch, so I am going to go ahead and add actually quite a lot of onion powder. I'm not even measuring here, but I'm going to guess that to be, I don't know, a couple tablespoons of onion powder, because I really want that flavor. In the meat, I just don't want to cook it with the onions. They're going to completely disintegrate while pressure cooking is why, and all you're really going to be left with is the flavor anyway. So rather than use an onion, I'm just using some onion powder. Why not, right? Same thing with the flavor, just not wasting an onion. Okay, now I've got about half of it, maybe a little more than half here, that's been rinsed. And I've got to get the rest of it. Now normally when I'm cooking tacos, y'all, I don't rinse the meat, but like I said before, this is for canning, and I really, really don't want very much fat in the jar. At least try to get as much out as possible. Okay. Now, one of the things I cook our tacos with is our crushed habanero flakes that we make. For 1 pound, I usually use only about, I don't know if you can see that, about that much. But since I have 4, obviously I'm going to do 4. You can do whatever you ordinarily do for tacos, y'all. Other than I don't want to put the onions in because, like I said before, they basically just disintegrate. If you want some onions so you have that little bit of chunkiness in your tacos, obviously you can go on ahead and chop some up right before you're ready to heat your taco mixture up. You can just fry some onions in a skillet and then add your taco meat to it, and then you'll have those chunky onions, which I may do sometimes if I feel like doing a little extra. But remember, we put a bunch of onion powder in here, and there's really no need. So I usually use, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 tablespoons like that for a pound. Again, I have 4 pounds, so I really just want to make sure I get enough seasoning in for 4 pounds. Now this is just the way I do it. You could use your homemade seasoning mix if you'd like. I haven't developed one that I particularly care for, but eventually I might get one developed. For now, I'm just going to use that store-bought seasoning mix. I'm going to get this all mixed into my meat. Just a tip for you guys, I find with tacos that if I mix the seasoning into the meat first and then add my water, life is simpler. You don't have to deal with seasoning mix, even if it's your homemade. You don't have to deal with it getting all clumpy because your meat will have already absorbed a good deal of it. Alright, and just like with any other canning project I do, I use filtered water. I do not use my tap water. The reason for that is that tap water contains chlorine and other things that will obliterate all the good bacteria that you actually need in your can. So don't use your tap water, use filtered water. And if you have a good well, use your well. That's fine. You can use it right out of the tap if you're on well water that's a good well water. And what I mean by a good well water is, you know, you don't have a lot of sulfur and the like in your well water. Okay, I gotta taste it, make sure that I have enough seasoning. No, I do not. And I'm going to leave this liquidy like this, you guys. I'm not going to cook all this liquid off. I'm going to let the pressure canner do its thing and cook it with the liquid in it. Can it, I guess if you want to call it, but at the same time it's cooking, you know. The pressure canner can most definitely be used as a pressure cooker as well. Oh yeah, that's better. Alright, when it's time to load the jars, I will bring you back. I currently have them in the dishwasher sterilizing. Just a tip for you. You can sterilize your jars in a dishwasher. And my dishwasher happens to be empty this morning, so why not? I'm going to use it. I will bring you back when it's time to fill the jars. Okay, so my jars are ready. And I'm going to fill it until I have about, I don't know, a little more than half an inch of head space. I just want to ensure that no siphoning takes place. You can use a chopstick or a debubbler tool like this. You just want to make sure you get any air bubbles that are trapped. Get them out. Okay, all right. Now once I have all the jars filled, I will bring you back and show you how we load the canner. Just like with water bath canning, same with pressure canning. Make sure you remember to clean the rim and the rings. This will ensure a good seal, and you don't want, all kinds of bad bacteria. And when pressure canning, it's very important that you do not over tighten your rings. You only want them finger tight. Now this is true for all canning, but I have found with pressure canning it's especially true. Those little boogers can get on there so tight. And other times, if you don't finger tighten it enough, you will find that the rings will have come loose. So you just want to make sure they're good and finger tight. And out of that 4 pounds, I got, I think these are half quarts. What are they? Oh, pints. Out of that 4 pounds, I got 3 5 pints. Now, one other thing to note is sterilization with your jars and your lids, while important, it is not as crucial when it comes to pressure canning, simply because the temperature gets so much higher. All right, let me get my canner with some water in it, and I'll bring you back. Okay, in your pot, you're going to want at least 1 inch of water. I have probably about 3. I came up about halfway on the jars. You don't want a full pot. You don't have to cover your jars in pressure canning. The water is really in there just to allow for the pressure to come. So then you're going to want, make sure if you have hard water like I do, that y'all don't forget your white vinegar. You don't really want to mess with that yuckies. Oh, where's my arrow? There it is. So on your pressure canner, there's going to be a place where there's an arrow. I don't know if you can see that, but you want to line that up with the other arrow, and then just follow the arrow as to which way to close it, and it's going to go clockwise. So the first thing you're going to do is bring it up to it starts to steam, and it needs to steam 10 minutes. And once that 10 minutes is up, you add your weight. When the weight starts to rock, that's when your time will start. In this case, after I put the weight on, I will process this for 60 minutes. Once the weight starts to jiggle, I'll show you guys what that looks like when it gets there. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see that steam pouring out of there. You want it to go spewing like that. And then set your timer for 10 minutes. And again, once it's spewed for 10 minutes, we'll put the weight on. And when the weight starts rocking, that's when our processing time for 75 minutes will start. Okay, the timer has ended, so I have 15 pounds of pressure. You need to follow what the guide says. I'm going to pop this on. And then I'm going to wait until this rocks before I start the timer. Back here, you notice that the safety pressure gauge is up. This is in place to keep you from being able to unlock this lid. This is for an overflow pressure. So when I first started, I overfilled, like as far as the water goes, it was like too much water, and so this would pop up to let out the extra pressure. Also, if too much pressure comes on here, this is also going to pop up and help let it out. Another tip is if this thing starts screaming, it just sounds like it's making an alarm sound. I don't know how to describe it. You need to, if you're on a gas stove, just go ahead and reduce the heat. If you're on a stovetop like mine, you want to remove it from the heat until it stops making that noise, and make sure you turn your heat down. I would tell you what level to put your heat at, except my stovetop cooks hot. So you really can't go based on what mine does. You just have to learn what yours does. Right now I have this set on on 5. So it's halfway. But I guarantee you when this thing starts rocking, I'm going to want to probably go ahead and lower that heat a little bit because it just cooks so hot. So, again, just to reiterate, what you want to do is wait for this to start rocking. It'll rock like that. You'll see. And then you start your time. We're going to do this for 75 minutes. And when I say rocking, this is what I mean rocking. See how it's rocking? Time to set the timer for 75 minutes. I'm also going to reduce this heat because it did not take long for it to start rocking. If it should stop rocking, I'll increase the heat. Hopefully, I've reduced it far enough that we don't have too much pressure. So now I'm just going to let this sit here and do its thing for 75 minutes, and I will see you at the end. Alright, so our timer is going off. Turn that heat off there, and we are going to move the canner off the heat. And it will stay here until all of the pressure is released, and then we will remove the lid and remove the cans. All right, now that the pressure has been released, I'm going to open this lid, and then I'm going to let the jars sit in here for about 5 minutes. I can smell taco, so I'm wondering if it's leaked out, but the water looks good. You can always tell if it leaks out when, if the water gets discolored. So just because I can smell it doesn't mean that it is. So anyway, we're going to remove these here in just a minute. Okay, so using your jar grabber, you want to go ahead and pull these jars out. Look, it's still boiling. And of course, the same applies here as it does with water bathing. You want to let your jars rest. It's recommended to leave them sit with the rings on for 24 hours. And then label and remove the rings and put them away. So we will put these here and hope that everything seals. And as you can see, sorry about that. As you can see, it's still cooking away in there. And you can kind of tell what I mean by the texture of the meat by looking through the jar.